Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stephen, I'm a traditionally published fantasy author. Today I'm going to be debunking some more myths on the internet about traditional publishing. One of my least favourite people on the internet, someone who I'm not going to name, and I'm also not going to direct you to that person's channel because every time someone goes, oh, it can't be that bad, I'll go and take a look. He wins because you're watching his videos, he's getting the views, he's getting attention, and the algorithm thinks, oh, you want to see more of this, and you really don't. So he's been spouting some more lies about traditional publishing, so this is going to get very salty very, very quickly because I'm very annoyed at this person that's spreading more lies and more misinformation, so you've been warned. The first negative that he talks about is to do with time. He started going on about saying that it can take anywhere from 1 to 5 years or even longer to get an agent and then for your book to be published. And the way he was talking about it was basically suggesting that they are stopping you from publishing your book regardless of how good it is. If the book is crap, if no one's going to buy it, if you think it's the best thing in the world ever, but in reality it's goddamn awful, no one is going to buy it. So the agent is doing their job and the publisher is doing their job by not taking on this piece of crap and trying to flog it. There has to be some quality markers. Now people are saying, oh, they're gatekeepers. Yes, but equally they're also kind of arbiters of quality in terms of what they know will sell in the market, not only now, but in 1 to 2 years' time. Because yes, it is slower to be traditionally published. I've always said this, I've never denied it, I've never said that that's a lie. It is slower. You can put out a self-published book in 3-4 months and you can do that 3 or 4 times a year if you're really good and you're really productive with your work. Traditionally publisher, yes, it is slower, but equally there's a longer process to go through because it's a bigger machine. I've talked about this in the past as well. The agent will look at a book when it comes in and know that, is it saleable at the moment? So if it had popped out, you send it to them on a Monday, and let's pretend they could put it on a Tuesday, is it going to sell now? But equally that's not realistic. They need to know that, is this something that's evergreen that you've written? That if I put out in 1 year's, 2 years, 3 years time, will a publisher still want to do it? Will the market be saturated? What's going on? And they have all this industry knowledge that we do not, because they're working in traditional publishing day in and day out. They're talking to editors all the time. They're looking at the trends. They're looking at what's selling. They know what the market will take and what they predicted it will take in a couple of years' time. They have all of this. If you send them something that's a Me Too product, that's a copy of something that's already out there, and there are 50 others already on the market, they're probably not going to take it unless the market can sustain a 56th, 57th, 58th version of that kind of book. You've seen it before. A book comes out and then a whole bunch of other ones that are very similar come out. But it's not to say that they were written overnight and shoved out. They were in the works and they were perhaps given more marketing and more promotion because of this big one that has exploded. So they have to decide what will sell. They have to take all of this industry information into consideration when they're making their choices. Now, of course, they don't always get it right because they're human, but that's kind of part of the business. You have to accept that that's what an agent does as part of their job, and that's what a publisher does as part of their job. They're not there to stop you being published. They're there to try and get something, a product that will sell. That is the goal. It could be that you get an agent and the book that you work on with them isn't quite right for the market for whatever reason, and when they try and take it to an editor and a publisher, they just can't take it on, and so it doesn't work. So you still have an agent, but then the goal is to come up with a new idea, a new book, work on it and take it to the editors again. You could go and self-publish that book if you want, but it comes back to, what is your goal? Do you ultimately just want to be read? Do you want to write a book and put it out there and just see what happens, see if it can find an audience that they're not anticipating? It's possible. Do you want to just sell 20, 30, 40, a couple hundred copies and that's all you want? Or do you want to build your career either as a traditionally published author or as a self-published author? And the difference is, with traditional publishing, you don't pay any money, the money flows to you. And with self-publishing, you have to do all of the work yourself. You also make all of the decisions on who the cover artist is, the editor, all of these things I've talked about before. It's all about control. So it's all about, what do you want to do with your writing? What do you want to do with your books? I want to spend more time doing other things and then learning a bunch of new skills that I would have to, and investing time and money in order to learn how to self-publish. At the moment, I don't have time in my life with everything else that's going on. A job, because most traditional published authors have a job, and family and, having a life and hobbies and other kind of stuff. That's the stuff that I want to do. So I'm not using that time to learn these new skills and go and be self-published. I'm sticking with traditional publishing for now. In the future, I'm probably going to do a couple of projects that we self-publish, so I'm going to have to become a hybrid author. But what do you want to do with your writing? Now let's get on to the second thing that he said, and this is where some of the real grade A bullshit starts to creep in. And I'm quoting, he says, once the traditional publisher owns the copyright, they will take over creative control. Okay. And he also went on to say that the book that is ultimately published could be very different from what you originally intended. So let's start with the lies that he's talking about. The publisher does not own the copyright to your books. Open any traditionally published book, look in the front cover, look whose name is against the copyright. It is the author. I did this in a video 2 weeks ago when I pulled one of my own books off the shelf and said, look, the copyright belongs to me. So that is a lie. If someone says the publisher owns the copyright, they are lying to you. Give the person a dislike in their comments. Make it very clear that this person is talking bullshit and they don't know what they're talking about. The other part of what he's talking about is saying you have no creative control. So 2 weeks ago I did an interview with Stacey McEwen. Her debut book Ledge is coming out from Angry Robot Books, as by the time this video comes out it will already be out. And she is a TikTok star and Instagram star that then was looking to self-publish her book and ultimately went down the traditional publishing route. And during our interview, I'll put a link here, I asked her what has she felt like the editing process was like, how has it been, what sort of comments has she been getting. And it's the same from her that I've been getting from my editor. It's all the same kind of thing. And this is how the creative control actually works. This person who's spreading these lies saying, you don't get to decide anything, that's just complete and utter nonsense. It's just not true. So I said to her, what sort of things do you get? And she would get comments in the tracked Word document from her editor, often questions like, what does this mean? Do we need this? Is this important? And these are comments that you have to kind of say, well, what are they actually saying? What is under that comment? So if they say, do you need this? It might be that you haven't explained something sufficiently enough. There's a gap between what is on your head and what is on the page for a new reader. So your editor is saying, I don't understand why this is there because they don't have access to all the information that you have in your head. So she then went in, added a few details, and that's fine. Another bit might say, do we need this bit? It might be that it's something that you personally feel is important. It may not be critical to the story. It might just be a character trait. It could be a quirk. It could be something that you really, really like, but the editor is not as keen on. And you can just say, yes, that's fine. I want to keep this. And that's it. That's all you need to do. They're not going to come back and argue with it and go back and forth and saying, well, I think you should get rid of it because it's not their book. It's your book. If they give you some editorial advice and say, this bit of the story doesn't work, it needs attention, and you ignore that and you override them, then there again, you have to face the consequences of this. If there's a massive plot hole and they say, you need to work on this, and you ignore them, and then when the book comes out, everyone's going to say, there's a massive plot hole, you need to sort this, and you didn't, that's on you for being a dickhead. You should have listened to them. Once again, you're the dickhead in the room. You should have listened to your editor. But if it's down to personal choice, personal taste, if it's character traits, if it's something where they don't understand, all of these things you have to weigh up, but you decide. You have creative control on the document. You can kind of say, nope, this is fine. Yes, I want to keep this, and move on, and that's it. But then you have to face the consequences of all of those decisions. The editorial process is there ultimately for clarity. Clarity in the mind of the reader. Readers will be reading this for the first time, and you want them to have the best vision and the best version of the book in their minds when they're reading it. The editorial process is about clarifying certain things they don't understand, things that you didn't need to be there. And it might be that you're planting seeds for further down the line, for future stories, for potential spin-offs, whatever it might be. So your editor doesn't know this. They don't have access to all the information in your head. They only have what's on the page. So if they're asking questions, it's because they want more information. They want you to better explain certain things. If you purposefully obscure things, then that's part of the plot, or to reveals later on, you can sort of say, this has been done on purpose, it's fine as it is, and then move on and there again. So you retain creative control. Saying that the author has no creative control and the publisher ultimately decides anything is just another lie. So don't believe it. Other parts of the process that you have involvement with again is the audiobook narrator. I was sent a number of samples, I chose my favourite, and that's the one we went with. Cover design. We talked about initial ideas with my editor. I came up with a few, she pitched some. We had some initial brief sketches from a cover artist, different styles, different thoughts. We picked one, we worked on it, we developed it, and that ultimately has become the cover every time. So I'm involved in all of these things at every stage. Nothing is done behind my back, nothing is done and I don't get any input in it. I'm always there, I'm always involved. They do a lot of the work, therefore they get paid for it, that's their job, but I'm there involved with it because it is my book, it's going to have my name on the cover. I have to be able to go out and confidently champion this book and talk about it with passion and with confidence. And so to do that, I have to believe in it, and therefore they involve me in every stage of the process. That is how it works. That's just standard practice. The third comment from this person was that you end up paying them either way, you have to pay them back from the royalties. So he's saying with traditional publishers, initially they take all of the costs on, but ultimately you have to pay them back. He thinks you're stupid. The person who's doing these videos thinks you're an idiot. He doesn't seem to understand that you're not and that you know how money works. He's purposely trying to mislead the audience to make self-publishing appear the best and the only way forward, and so that you will go and work with him as a service. And there again, he doesn't seem to understand he's just being a complete arsehole about this. He's saying that the publisher takes on all of this work, they do all of it, then you have to pay them back. Is he going to work for free when you go with this person? No, you have to pay them for a service. So the way it works is, traditional publisher gives you some money, an advance, to write the book, to work on it, to live on it perhaps, to just kind of have that money because they bought it from you. But ultimately, you have to pay that money back. It's not a gift. And the way you pay it back is when the books are sold. For every book that is sold, some of the money goes back to the publisher. And once you have earned out that advance from sales, then every sale thereafter is a royalty and you get money and the publisher gets money. This person's kind of suggesting that you could just walk into a restaurant, order some food, eat it and say, no, that's fine, I'm just not going to pay you. You're getting a service from the publisher. They are doing a bunch of these things for you. Editing, promoting it, marketing it, ebook, audiobook, working with all of the bookshops and all the distributors, printing the book for God's sake, sourcing all of the paper, all of the ink, the cover artists, all these people have to be paid. If you think about a publisher, you can say, oh, they're a large organisation, but ultimately the team that you're working with will be relatively small. They're a bunch of people that are doing a job, that need to be paid, they need to feed their families, they need to pay their bills. And where does that money come from? Their salary and a bunch of the other things come from book sales. So therefore, of course you have to pay them back. They don't get paid for free, they don't get to do everything they want for free, and neither do you. So it's disingenuous to say that you have to pay them back. Yes, that's how money works, that's how commerce works, that's how just society works. You don't get anything for free. And equally, if you went down with this ridiculous arsehole and his self-publishing program, you're going to have to pay him. Let's see if he wants to do any of that for free. I bet the answer is no. If you go the self-published route yourself, then you put your hand in your pocket and you pay for all of these things, and you're ultimately paying yourself back until you break even, and thereafter every sale is money in your pocket. It's just the same with traditional publisher. You're paying them back. That's how it works. The next part of what he said, though, was really just more stupidity. He said that you have to pay back the marketing and the staffing costs. This is just another lie. In your contract with your traditional publisher, it will say, this is how much your advance is. This is the percentage you have to pay back on paperback, ebook, audiobook for every sale. That's all you have to pay. It doesn't then say, oh, on top of the advance, we're now going to add money on for staffing, marketing, promotion. All of that the publisher swallows. They've worked that out based upon the money that you get from every sale, and the money they recoup goes towards paying for all of that stuff. It's not included as an extra. It's not on top. it's folded into your advance. That's their running costs, they look after that, but some of the money will come from your advance, from every sale, to pay for the business. That is standard. So kind of saying all these extra things, they're not hidden costs. Say you get 50 grand for your advance, you have to sell £50,000, dollars, whatever worth of books, and then every sale for you is money in your pocket, and it's the same for the publisher. The other thing he said is it could take a long time for you to earn out the advance, and to be honest, there's no way to know that. It depends upon a number of different things. It depends on how fast your book is selling, if it's being well received. It depends on how big the advance is. If you get a modest advance from a traditional publisher and you're not using that money to live on, it's just to supplement your income, or it's something on top that you have from your normal day job, then you're not using that to pay the bills and so on. It's an extra thing. So if you earn that out fairly quickly, because it's a smaller advance, every sale thereafter is a royalty. There are some authors that obviously write full time, but there aren't many of them. They are normally the ones that are a lot more successful, that have much bigger advances, and therefore they're able to take the time to write the book as long as they want, a year, 2 years, 3 years perhaps for a series, and they're using that money to live on, and then when the book comes out it'll sell fairly well or very, very well, and they recoup some of that cost for the publisher. But for most of us it isn't like that. So a modest advance you might earn out fairly quickly. So saying that it could be a long time before you earn out is just disingenuous too. It's just another lie to try and say that you must go down the self-publishing route. The other thing he talked about was to do with transparency, saying that publishers don't tell you anything, they don't tell you what's going on with your sales, you can't find out this information. I will say it varies from publisher to publisher. Some are better at giving the information to the authors than others. I have worked with two major publishers, with Orbit, who are part of the Hachette Group, and of course Angry Robot, who are part of Watkins Media. And in both instances, I have had access to either a portal that gives me information, that tells me my sales, ebook, audiobook, paperback, or I am sent regular reports, usually every 6 months, saying what my sales are, where I'm up to with the advance, have I earned out, and what's going on. And thereafter, Orbit have sent me statements every 6 months saying how many ebooks I've sold, paperback, audiobook in the UK and the other territories, and then also the same for America, because Orbit US and UK are obviously connected, but they're not exactly the same organisations. The sales systems are slightly different. So I get two lots. I get information on what's going on in America, and then England, UK and the rest of the world. But I get those still. I still get them. It tells me how I'm doing, what's going on. And with Angry Robot, I speak to my editor, she sends me information, I know what's going on. So it's not as if they're hoarding the information, they don't want to tell you. Sometimes it's difficult to get, they're trying to get as much information as they can, because ultimately they need to know this information. They need to know how well is the book selling, so that they know how close it's getting to earning out, what's happening in the market, are there any trends emerging. Sometimes something will do very well and they'll say, oh, that's similar to so-and-so's book, right, let's put that on a special. Therefore, we'll sell that 99p for an ebook for a week, and we think that'll lift the sales of this other book because it's similar to the other one that's doing very well. So they need to know this information because it helps you and it helps them. Ultimately, he's trying to create the impression that authors have an antagonistic relationship with their traditional publisher, that somehow once the book is out there it's a black hole, you can't get hold of anybody, and it's just it's beyond your control, which isn't true. I am part of the team of when I work with my publisher, my editor, PR, marketing, all this, we're all part on the same team. We're not against each other. They want the book to do well, and so do I. So we work together collaboratively the whole time. This kind of they have control, you don't get to do anything, you don't know what's going on, isn't true. I email my editor all the time. I talk to my agent all the time. If I have any questions, I can ask them. It's not as if it's a closed shop and then once the book goes out there, you never hear from them again. That's just not true. Ultimately, the reason this person is doing this is saying that traditional publishing is awful, it's bad, it's terrible. Then he can come in on his to be the white knight and say, oh, but if you go down a self-publishing route, it's much better. No, I've got a service that can help you. It only costs you at least £1,500, but that it varies. It can be a lot more. Yeah, and it could be several £1,000s, and you have no idea of any kind of success rate that this person's had, any sales, any kind of bestseller list, anything. When you work with an agent, You can look up their list of information, you can find out the history, you can see who are their clients, what are they doing, how well are they selling, have you heard of their clients, what's going on. All that information is public. You have no information about the history of someone like this who's claiming to solve all your problems, and in fact is probably a snake oil salesman. So be very careful who you give your money to if you go down the self-publishing route. The last point was talking about he thinks that publishers just throw out a bunch of books, throw them against the wall and see what sticks. He thinks the idea of publishers being selective on what they take on and try and publish is somehow bad. That's how business works. You don't take on a book that isn't going to do well and is going to lose your money. How is that sensible business? Because as much as writing books is all about ideas and creativity and telling stories, you must also understand, as a writer, you have to have a bit of a business brain. You have to have this in the back of your mind. You have to be able to accept that the idea of you're selling your imagination, you're selling stories to someone to turn it into a physical product to sell. And it's a business. Publishers will take on books that they want to do well. This is what it's all about. Not everything is going to be success. They know this, but they're gambling on something that they really like, that they're passionate about. Ultimately, all of the books that they take on, they think there's something there. They think it has potential. It could be that your book is similar to X and Y that did really well, therefore we think it will do well and we have a go. They have no guarantee. They're taking all of the risk, remember, with traditional publishing. They're putting their hand in their pocket, they're giving you the money for your advance, they're putting all this work in. They have no guarantee that it's going to do well. And equally, you have no guarantee if you self-publish. The difference is you could put a bunch of money in and it doesn't work, you've lost all that money. If you go down the traditional publishing route, they put a bunch of money in and it doesn't sell, you don't have to give back the money that they've already given you. It means you don't get any money if you don't earn out your advance. You have to earn it out from sales. Ultimately, if you only had, $25,000 worth of sales and then just completely stopped, which doesn't happen, and it was a $50,000 advance, you don't have to give that 25k back. That's not how it works. They take the 25k loss, they swallow it, and they move on. That's how it works. It's not you going, oh, well, I have to give them that money back. No, you don't. You never give that money back. Publishers are always looking for something new, fresh, exciting, interesting, scary. They're always trying to find new voices. They want to find new stories and approaches that they've not seen before. And all of those are a gamble. All of those are a risk. If they could just publish the same 6 authors every time that they knew a guaranteed seller, they'd do that, but that's not realistic. That's not how the market works. People are always searching for new voices and new ideas, so they have to keep bringing in new authors all of the time. Authors get old and die. Their pace of writing slows down. They can't keep producing books of the same quality at the same pace. Some of my favourite authors now, in terms of crime, horror, are getting up in the years, and I'm kind of worried about them and what's going to happen to them and who's going to fill their shoes when they've gone. We've lost so many greats. So they have to bring in new authors. This is what it's all about. So they want to try and find something that they think is going to work. And it's a gamble. That's kind of part of the other side of the business that you have to accept and understand. So you do have control of the book. You do have control of the copyright and all this sort of stuff. And I'm not going to pretend that traditional publishing is perfect and it's roses every time and everything's brilliant. It's a tough business. I've said it before. It's tough whichever path you go down. It's up to you about what you choose. The publishers will do their best. They'll take a gamble and hopefully it will work out and your book will do okay. But there are no guarantees. And that's a difficult and bitter pill to swallow that you have to accept as an author. But as I've always said, being an author, being a writer, your career isn't built upon one book, it's built upon a body of work. Every book isn't going to be a smash bestseller and a great success. If a book doesn't do well, then you work on the next one and hopefully you'll learn from that, get better, your skills will improve and you'll do something that the market will respond to better, and gradually you build up this body of work. Before I go, just a couple of things. Shout out to all the people on Headspace who support me through the Patreon. We have a private writing community. You can join it if you want to through Discord, and there's a link to my Patreon below. I have a writing advice ebook. I keep forgetting to mention it. There's a link down below there if you want. I even started doing some merchandise with some of my catchphrases, which I didn't realise. there's links down below for that too. And a quick shout out, because whenever I do one of these sweary videos, there's a certain forum that kind of pops up in my Google and my YouTube analytics. So you know who you are. Hello. I know you're watching probably, and thanks. I appreciate the support. So thank you for all of you who do watch my channel and support my channel. If you see any more of these people spouting nonsense, and if it's something you're not sure about with traditional publishing, direct it to me, let me know, put it in the comments, get in touch, and we'll see if we can make any sense of it. But be very careful with some of these people. Give money just away to someone that has no kind of track record. That's what I'm going to talk about for today. I'll be back next week with another video.